Hi guys, Ivano here, and I wanted to do a quick summary of patch 7.2 that just dropped yesterday from the perspective of a PvPer, since I know most of you guys can't read, so I went through the patch notes and tried to summarize it for you. Anyway, most important things I'll summarize quickly. As always, in case you don't want to watch the whole video, I'll just put a quick summary up here of the most important things. And for those that want to watch me ramble over the whole shit, you're very welcome to stay, of course. So patch 7.2, of course, was the long-awaited PvP revamp. But instead of the features that people were actually requesting, what did BioWare do? Instead of map filtering or the next ranked season, BioWare simply removed ranked. So that's the big one. They're not even mentioning it much here in the patch notes. They're simply saying you can now queue solo or as a group for 4v4 and 8v8. But basically what it means is ranked is gone. There'll be no more seasons, no more rewards. So that sucks. I mean, I really haven't played ranked since season 5, but nevertheless, it was fun to watch sometimes. And there was a small but dedicated community of players who enjoyed it, who now mostly will quit. And that's not good, obviously. BioWare, again, doing the strangest possible decision at every turn, basically. No idea why what they're trying to do here. So what they're saying is, of course, they're trying to encourage participation, right, and especially get new players into the game mode. But the most important change that they actually did is not even in the patch notes. You can only find it in this news article here. They're talking about the goals of the revamp and what exactly are the changes. But in my opinion, the most impactful thing you can simply find here in this last sentence, which means that from now on, there's 8-player premates allowed in regular war zones, which is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, many people have been complaining already about 4-player premates being too OP and farming everyone. And I know that on my channel, there's a lot of that action simply because I enjoy playing with my guild and my friends. And it's an MMO at the end of the day. But I mean, let's be honest, there's barely 16 good players left in the game that can actually compete at the same level. And if you have 8 of those players on one team, which is something that we did last night on stream, it's just ridiculous, right? So if you play with 8 players in a premate against 8 random players, the 8 random players have no chance at all. They just explode, they instantly die, and they cannot play the game, basically, which is extremely toxic. So, and it's also not fun for the premate. Like, there's no point. The most fun games are as a premate player, if you play against another premate, but simply farming as 8 people, farming 8 regular 8 single players is not fun for everyone. So if they really keep this up, I mean, we'll keep queuing as 8 players, we'll farm everyone, and I guess just no one's going to play anymore. So what's the point of this? Actually, it's extremely stupid. I'm not sure really who thought of this, but they should reconsider immediately. So yeah, ideally share this video with your uncle who works at BioWare. We all know he does. So that BioWare can revert this and just go back to how it was before. Anyway, in other changes, free-to-play players can now also queue for unlimited racks, which of course doesn't help if you combine it with this change up here, right? So our 8-player premate will now farm 8 brand new free-to-play solo players, which, let's just say, will not necessarily be conducive to a very positive and engaging PvP experience. Anyway, and I guess there are some participation rewards. There's some kind of battle pass system. I don't really care. I mean, I guess you can look like this. There's some gear you can get if you finish the season. Anyway, on to more interesting things, the patch notes. So what's new? focusing on PvP, I think the first thing is the gear. So PvP gear now goes up to item level 332. Yeah, that's the one. Which basically means use all the boxes you saved from my previous weeklies, upgrade your gear to 332. Once you upgrade 2 of the pieces, you can go to Hide and Seek, the mod vendor, and get all your mods from there. You have to deconstruct 2 of the items to unlock all the mods. If you have no idea what I'm talking about right now, I'll put a link up here to my other video where I explain that. So, but basically, yeah, the gear level is increased, which means upgrading the gear, which means more damage. So that's actually a good change. I mean, more damage is always good. More HPS for the healers, that's nice. Yeah. What else? This one I think also useful if you have these Warzone accelerants, which you get for doing your weekly. If I remember correctly, you can now change them into tech frags. That's nice. If you're doing flashpoints or OPs on the side, you can also get more tech frags to gear your alts. So that's a good change. But of course, the main interesting thing I think of the day is always the class balance changes. Now the short version of this is tanks have been buffed, Marauders have been nerfed. But yeah, in the details there's a bit more. So since the changes are always the same for the Republic classes and the Imperial classes, I'll simply go over the Imperial version since that's the side I play on. So PowerTech Shield Tech, the PowerTech tank, gets some bug fixes and some improvements. Payday, which is the single target replacement for Heat Blast, now benefits from heat screen's cooldown reduction. Yeah, so what the hell is heat screen? Heat screen is the buff you get when you shield an attack or you trigger your cylinder. And now that basically reduces the cooldown of Payday by 1 second. So you'll have it up more frequently. That's pretty good because it also reduces the cooldown of your single target taunt. So very useful. I think that's a bug fix. I think it was always supposed to work like this because that applies to Heat Blast, but not to the replacement. So now it does. Thermal Screen Tactical. This is the one that makes you basically tankier in PvP. I think not the best. For PT tank, I would not recommend this actually. I would just play Neural Trigger, which is the hardstun tactical that's really OP right now. Or if you want more damage, play Superheated Fuel. So this one I think will not be so impactful. Next one, pay this damage 12% increase. This is very nice. PowerTech tank. I think the only weakness it has is that it lacks in the single target department when it comes to damage. Payday is probably your biggest single target hit. So that gets buffed by 12% is very nice. Iron Overload shock duration. This one doesn't really matter, to be honest. The next one, Flame Engine. So yeah, this one is part of the Combust passive level 35, which basically resets the cooldown of your Firestorm or Heavy Flamethrower if you spec into that. Makes it do more damage and makes it go really shiny. The chance to trigger this doesn't really matter. Anyway, you triggered it all the time if you were in combat. But the damage is buffed by 10% on Firestorm, which is another of your biggest hits. It's very nice. So a good buff overall. PowerTech tank is arguably already the best tank. Was lacking a little bit behind Jug in the single target damage department. So now they're buffing that, meaning that PowerTech will be even stronger. I guess I forgot the last point here. Yeah, but I mean, this is also basically just a little bit more damage. Shield Vents is the level 60 passive, but should not be too impactful. Next up, we have Commando and Mercenary. So what did they change here? They changed the rate limit for the particle accelerator, which is the kind of the rail shot cooldown reset for mercs, so similar to how Advanced Prototype has it. I think this is something that PvEers asked for. Maybe it'll make it a bit easier to play for PvP, but to be honest, IO is not a spec you see frequently in PvP anyway, so probably all of this will not be too impactful. Next one is big though. Hydraulic overrides are back. They're always granted at level 39. You don't have to spec into it anymore. I think this is a great change. By itself, it's a great change because, yeah, if you play Merc, you know, you get rooted a lot. You get trained down by PTs, by Juggernauts, by Marauders. It's really annoying because you cannot really do anything except use your shield, use Reflect and Kolto until you eventually die. You can never get away from them if you have Reflect. Because Rocket Out could not be used when you're rooted, for example, but Hydraulics obviously breaks the root. So Hydraulics baseline, that's great. But now you will have to choose between Rocket Out and Reflect, which is now a level 68 ability choice. So you lose one mobility skill and you gain another one. Arguably, me personally, I prefer Hydros. I think they're more useful, especially because they're going to get buffed in duration here as well. But Rocket Out also is a pretty fun ability. It can allow you to get away from a fight. Now you have to choose between Rocket Out and Reflect. I personally, especially when you play Arena or you play against enemies that focus you a lot, Reflect is just it's a hard cooldown. It's probably still better. But if you want to play a very mobile Mercenary, then you can go with Rocket Out and Hydraulics. And Rocket Out even has been buffed, which is nice. Yeah, so Rocket Out has been redesigned. This one is a better version of what you had in patch 7.1 because it includes the old utility, I think it was called Smokescreen. That makes it so your cannot be pulled, for example, after you use Rocket Out. And if someone does damage you, then your Rocket Out resets, and you basically get 3 charges of Rocket Out this way. So yeah, if you take this, and then also the buffed Hydraulics, which now lasts 4 seconds longer if you spec into Jet Escape, which you probably will, then Mercenary could be maybe competing for the title of the Kiting King versus the Madness Sorcerers of this world. Overall, Mercenary changes. I think the class probably still needs a damage buff. Kind of meh changes, simply because 7.0 just fucked the class too much. Having to choose between Super Kolto, casting while moving, Reflect, or Rocket Out, when in previous patches you could have all of those skills at once. Just makes it so that Mercenaries is not as strong as it used to be. Next up, Operative Scoundrel. I think they fixed the bug with a tactical that makes your Hololocate have 2 charges. I think Operatives are only really playing this for Hardball, so that's going to make them even better at Hardball, where they're already arguably the best class anyway. But otherwise, it should not be too impactful, since in all other war zones, you probably want to play a damage tactical. And then Medicine, this is supposed to be a bug fix, I guess. But yeah, it amounts to a nerf to the single target healing, I guess, of the Ops healer. I think you will now just take the talent that gives you 10% more heal on your injection and the tactical advantage when you use it on yourself. So probably will not affect operatives too much, just a small bug fix. Next up, we have Assassin Tanks, Darkness spec. Just giving a flat buff to damage reduction when they're in the tank stance. That's great, actually. I think 3% doesn't sound like much, but over a long fight, I mean, that's still a lot of extra damage mitigation you get for free. So for sure, we take it. Gloomward does 50% more damage. Yeah, this is the one, I think the level 43 talent, which, oh no, sorry, it's on the level 39. and reduces your the cooldown of your must taunt, and then resets Wither and Discharge, and does like 10k AoE damage when your Dark Ward breaks. Now it'll do 15k, I guess, which is okay. Still not great, but I guess it's a nice buff. Probably though, I would rather go for the extra recklessness charges, which is also a choice in that level 39 tier. Increased duration of reckless defense, 10 seconds up from 6. This is the level 43 choice. It gives you 10% DR after recklessness. Will not have an impact in PvP because Overcharged Saber is at the same tier, which gives you 25% DR and heals you as well. So that's simply better in most cases. Fix an issue. Okay, they fixed the bug. Doesn't really matter since you're not taking that talent anyway. I guess that's technically a damage nerf then for the people that were taking it. Ward of the Continuum. I think for PvP this is not a good tactical at all. So the changes, in my opinion, will not make it useful either. Probably just go for 2 cloaks, Friend of the Force or something, and protect your healer if you're playing assassin tank in PvP. So this change, in my opinion, not great. But I'm not the best assassin tank player, so maybe someone can tell me how wrong I am in the comments. Severing Slash redesign. This is, of course, the level 68 meme ability that you can choose. Now, for some reason, BioWare decided to give it an AoE root. Why? Eludes me, because on level 68 you can already choose Overload, which is a knockback and an AoE root. Has a bigger range, and it's also not white damage. So I really don't see any case where anyone would ever take Severing Slash. But this has been the case since this ability was introduced. Honestly, just a candidate to be removed already. So yeah, I think even with theoretical very long root potential and the attached slow you can get now, I think still it's not worth it. Next up, we have Mounting Darkness, level 68 passive, which is actually the one that makes you go Shiny Puddle when you use Deflection, and also has a passive in there that buffs your damage. So yeah, that goes up from 20 to 30%. Some nice damage on your AoE abilities. Will maybe make it so that Assassin can compete a little bit better with PT in AoE situations. So I guess it's a welcome buff. And then there's a bunch of changes to Energize. That's good, but will probably not affect damage too much. Spike stun duration increased by 1 second. Now it's a 3-second stun. This is good since you have it up very frequently. It could probably be really nasty in combination with a double PT assassin tank comp. You can just constantly stun someone, basically. Could be really annoying. So definitely looking out for this one. I'll for sure try this one out. But yeah, 10% damage reduction when Spike deals damage. I'm not really sure where this is coming from. Simply for the reason that if you're stunning someone with Spike, you don't really need the damage reduction, do you? Since they're stunned. But I guess in a big fight, someone else might damage you, so still welcome. Yeah, Dark Forces mod heals for 2% of max health. Dark Forces is the other level 43 choice. We just talked about Reckless Defense a while ago. And for Dark Forces, yeah, here's the same thing. Just pick Overcharged Saber, which is on the same tier. It's simply better, and I think this buff will not be enough to change that. So overall, Shadow Tank gets not only additional damage, it also gets additional tankiness. Will it be enough to make it better than PT and Jug? Probably not, I would say. I mean, it's the one advantage is it's that it's really hard to tunnel, simply because you can play 2 vanishes and it's just insanely hard to kill. Damage and CC wise, we'll need to test it out. I'm a little bit skeptical, but who knows? I don't really play assassin tank either. So Good. Shadow Tank gets the same changes. Sage Telekinetics, I think this is just a typo fix, no actual balance change. And then the big nerf of the patch, the nerf hammer drops on Sentinels and Marauders. So this is not a typo. Actually, Marauder gets nerfed, meaning all 3 specs. So they're hitting Annihilation, they're hitting Carnage, and they're hitting Fury. They all get a damage nerf. Now, I think this is mostly targeted at PvE, but of course we'll also nerf them in PvP quite a lot. So yeah, let's go through the changes. When I first read this, I thought, sounds like they're buffing any, right? Like increase the damage, increase the damage, blah, 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 blah. But the big change is actually this one regarding Draining Center, which currently makes it so your force rend builds 10 Fury and deals 4 times its initial damage. So actually gives you a little burst when playing Annie in PvP. And now this is basically half. This will only deal twice its damage now during Berserk, and then give you a little heal. Meaning that overall Marauder or any Marauder probably loses, something like 2k DPS maybe, who knows. But definitely up to 10% is what the PvEers are saying. So in PvE, we can probably expect a similar thing. To be honest, Ani Marauder was not really the spec of choice in PvE anyway. Simply being a 4 meter melee class based on dots is not great. And most people that play Marauder, they just play Fury or Carnage instead, since they're just really good at the moment. Or should I say they were really good, because Carnage gets hit with a nerf hammer. So the new tactical that was introduced recently now gets hit. Doesn't sound that bad here. Nerf from 25% down to 15%. But I think this stacks 3 times, right? So the nerf is actually 3 times as bad as it looks. So that's not great. Carnage is going to lose a lot of crit. A lot of his sustain damage will go down. Probably also in the range of somewhere between 8 to 10%. I think Carnage will still be fine. I mean, there's Carnage Marauders doing 20k DPS right now in Warzones, so they'll still be fine. But I would say this is probably a well-deserved nerf to the damage of Carnage. Of course, you can play just another tactical, but then I think this one might still be the best. So if you're not playing this one, then not sure what you're doing anyway. And then Fury, few changes, but yeah, the big one. They make it a bit harder to get Fury. This is not a great nerf. The big nerf is obviously that Furious Rumination has been changed, meaning that when you activate Berserk, you will no longer have an automatic crit. And this is also probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7% damage nerf. I think the PvEers that play Fury, and especially the guys that parse a lot, are freaking out a little bit about it right now. But yeah, it will probably mean that instead of playing Furious Rumination for Fury now, you will spec into Criticality, which gives you 25% more crit during Berserk. And then you need to go back to the old Fury rotation where you use Battering Assault and stuff to build some rage. Whereas in the recent patch, you had so much free rage from Furious Rumination that you never even need to use your rage builder, which, to be honest, was a little bit of a monkey playstyle anyway. So when I played Fury, it just really felt like I was getting dumber every second playing it. So this is good. You need to manage your Fury again. But yes, it's going to be sad to see the big crits no longer happening, probably. Yeah, overall, what to say about Marauder? I mean, they already lost their OP tactical in Default Splice Genes. Next, they are losing damage. I think Marauder will still be fine, simply because they have very good cooldowns for PvP and the damage will still be good, but definitely not S tier. Okay, last but not least, Juggernaut. I think those changes there are a bit confusing, so I'll try to break them down. When I first read this, I wasn't really sure what was happening, so I guess you need a PhD in Juggernaut mechanics to really understand everything that's happening here. But in a nutshell, they're changing the Warmonger utility, which is, of course, the level 51 passive that makes it so your 4 sleep CD gets reduced when you get attacked. If you're playing Juggernaut, you are taking this anyway, at least in PvP. And now they're moving the execute proc onto here. That used to be before on the level 64 utility that all Jug specs shared, which was called War Master. So now they're simply moving that around. And then War Master itself has been redesigned and will differ depending on what discipline you're playing. And actually, I think to better understand it, actually, it's good if you start with Vengeance. Because what they did for Vengeance was, in a nutshell, taking Brawn, which is the Vengeance passive you get on level 51. So not a choice, it's just a passive that Vengeance has, which makes the Vengeance Jug immune to interrupts, stuns, knockdowns, and incaps for 4 seconds after the leap, and also gives you 20% DR. But apparently that passive also had a hidden passive in there, which gives you 15% DR during Endure Pain. And that's the case for Vengeance Jugs only. It's nowhere really mentioned in any passive ability in the game, so can only be seen from the tooltip. That's the only way. I guess why not? But yeah, that's exactly what happens when you have an 11-year-old game and you redesign the skill trees every other year. So what they're doing is they're taking this Brawn passive and they're moving it to the War Master utility, right? So War Master before the level 64 utility for all specs already gave you the opportunity to become immune to movement impairing effects and push or pull effects, but you could still be stunned. So if you play Rage or Immortal, you jump to someone, you could still stun them. But you could not pull them, for example. So it was just a little bit weird. Kind of makes it confusing when a Juggernaut jumps at you. You need to somehow figure out what they're spec'd into, and now BioWare is basically cleaning it up, and they're saying that the War Master utility is now the same for all Juggernauts and makes it so if you spec into that at level 64, then you're just fully immune to CC for 4 seconds after a jump. Which I guess it's a nice way to clean it up. For Vengeance in particular, it's not quite clear whether Vengeance actually gains anything from this. So BioWare is saying deafening defense, which was previously a passive gained at level 1. Yeah, this one, to be honest, still confuses me a bit, because I'm not sure whether previously means that it was already in the game, but just hidden, or that with previously they mean in a past patch. So I checked, and this 15% damage reduction was already in the game in patch 7.1. So maybe Vengeance actually doesn't get buffed from this at all, but yeah, the other Juggernaut disciplines might. So not quite clear. I guess maybe BioWare can tell us what they meant with previously. But yeah, so the utilities change around, and I think actually for Rage will be the main beneficiary of that, because Rage now can spec into the new War Master, which will also give it the 20% damage reduction that previously belonged to the Brawn passive only for Vengeance Jugs. So that's nice. And yeah, as I said, War Master no longer grants Vicious Throw, but Rage Juggernauts will still have the execute proc because it's now part of the Warmonger utility. Also doesn't help that both the utilities have a very similar name. And then finally, we're going to Immortal. So for Immortal, the War Master utility will now make it so that the charge finishes the cooldown of your disruption, that's your interrupt, and also gives you Unstoppable, which is again coming from the Vengeance Brawn effect. makes you fully immune to CC, but doesn't give you any additional damage reduction. So tanks don't get tankier, they instead get the option to interrupt healers even more. I think this used to be in utility back in the day for Juggernaut tank. So as a Juggernaut tank, now you can do a really annoying rotation where you interrupt someone with disruption, then you push them away, interrupt them again, you charge at them, interrupt them a third time, and that will reset your disruption again, so you can interrupt them a fourth time. You can really shut down a healer or shut down a ranged caster like a Lightning Sork, and that's not even talking about hard stuns yet. So yeah, if you are playing Immortal, that's something fun you can do, starting with this patch. Other changes for Immortal, Conquering Defense now increases Crushing Blows damage by 12%. Conquering Defense is the level 60 passive. This is simply in addition to the other effects, so that's great. 12% on your main damage ability will take Immortal's damage, and Immortal is probably already the highest damaging tank in PvP, at least in single target fights. But to be honest, Crushing Blow is AoE, so also in AoE fights, Juggernaut is really strong right now, and they're buffing its best skill by 12%, so this is honestly a little bit insane. I think Juggernaut might be OP next patch, so definitely check that out. And then they're getting even more damage buffs. This is the level 35 passage, Lash Out. Retaliation gets buffed. Obviously, you're proccing that every time you're using Crushing Blow, so great buff. Crushing Rage being replaced by Crushing Grip. Okay, so Crushing Rage is basically the left choice on level 39. And this makes it now so that you can choose to be a stun bot, right? So the new talent will make it so that your Crushing Blow every time for every enemy hit will reduce the cooldown of your hard stun. So if you're in a big fight and one Crushing Blow, you can reduce the cooldown by 16 seconds. And obviously Force Choke is on a 1 minute cooldown, I think. So that's pretty insane in big fights. But if you're picking this utility, then you cannot choose the damage utility, which is on the same tier, and either increases the crit chance by 20% or the damage to taunt the targets by 50% for Crushing Blow. So you can now kind of choose whether you want to be a stun bot or whether you want to do actual damage. And then finally, the Targeting Assault mod is being replaced by Aegis Shield. This is the level 23 choice in mid. It makes it so that Aegis Assault does 50% more damage to taunt the targets. Now it will basically give you the barrier of protection. I think this is not that great for PvP, right? So instead you would just take the right choice here, which is Taunting Strike, which would buff the damage and crit of Aegis Assault. Probably better overall. So Juggernauts overall, kind of to sum it up, in a nutshell, means that all Juggernauts will get the execute after leap, which is good. As a Juggernaut player, this is very fun to do. Another button to push and means more damage, of course. Vengeance maybe gets a little tankier, although it's not clear from the patch notes. But Rage definitely gets tankier. So Rage will get the 20% damage reduction for 4 seconds after leap. That's very nice, especially because you can reset it with Force Push. So for Rage, which already has great damage, but not that great survivability, I think this one might push it into the S tier, remains to be seen. And the Juggernaut tank will get more damage, which might break the class and just turn it into something that you will see a lot in the war zones. So that's it. I think those were the most important changes when it comes to PvP. There are some more minor things in here. You can read them for yourself, but I think this video has been going on long enough. If you have any questions about it, drop by my stream. Feel free to ask anything. And please, BioWare, remove 8-man premates. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.